we've given them microphones.
Yeah.
I'm always very, very pleased that people give up their precious con time to come to one of these. It's very nice.
Precious gaming time. Ooh. Boy, oh boy. Thank you, everybody.
We're going to be talking about dysfunction in gaming, but I want to say something somewhat serious on that regard first, because I really like gaming in general because it's for everyone. And we may sound, briefly, today, like it's not, okay? But it really is, and I think it's really important, you know, there are people in my gaming group, my larger extended gaming group, not those of you who were watching, but the large extended group who I really don't like playing games with, or really like even talking to sometimes that often, because they're harder to get along with, they present their own set of problems. This is just life in general, there are people like that. But we need to be as accommodating as we can. And I really fear a lot for the board gaming hobby because people have these public gaming groups that they go to, and they have a hard time dealing with it, so they go start their own little private gaming group, which is fine, those are fun, and I do some of those of my own too. But that doesn't help grow the hobby, and it also just isn't very nice sometimes. We just have a game group and we didn't invite Bob because Bob chews with his mouth open, or whatever it is. But sometimes you can deal with these problems.
Yeah.
And there are things that are a problem in the game group, which I think you made a list of.
I did actually. I went online recently on Facebook, one of the Facebook groups. They asked that question. Someone said, "What can you not stand in your game group, people?" Oh boy, that thread got long. There was a lot of things that were said, right? And people were voting, and so I kind of went through and I just wrote down all the things that got a few votes or so from that list. And I think, you know, like you said, it's important, this topic in a way, because not only can this happen, maybe does everyone have a game group that they're in or play games? Hands up, yeah, everyone's, okay, good, this is the crowd.
We can also talk about the people downstairs.
Yeah, that's right, yes.
Or it's you.
Well, that's the thing too, right? Like whether or not you're having a problem currently, it might happen in the future, or yeah, maybe it's you. It's a possibility, right? It's good to be aware of these things, because I know I myself have done some things after game group. I've kind of gone home and went, that wasn't my best moment. Like maybe I made someone uncomfortable with the way I reacted to how the game went, or whatever, right? And so these things are something that's good to be aware of. It actually might be kind of fun though to see if people can guess some of the things that were on this list. Do you want to?
It probably won't be that hard, actually.
We won't go through all of them, but I'm kind of curious. Does anyone have an idea of something that might stand out as kind of a quality that maybe was? I see a hand there. Go ahead.
Rules dancing.
Very good. I have one down here. This is complaining about the rules teacher. I kind of.
Yeah, we're flipping it on you now.
Yeah.
Extreme complaining about the results of games.
Yeah, so like maybe we had poor losers, poor winners, right? That sort of thing can certainly crop up. Anyone have any other? There's one.
Analysis paralysis.
Analysis paralysis, so very popular.
That was my vote for number one.
Yes. One's fear of losing, ruining everyone else's good time. Yeah.
Won't pay attention to the while playing the rules.
Yes, distracted, right? And what's the
two in my group?
What would you say is one of the biggest distractions for a lot of people?
Cell phone.
There it is. Yeah, that was the one for sure. You had one too?
No, cell phones, right?
Yeah, cell phones.
The alpha male.
Yeah, alpha male. Yeah, I got one in here too about quarterbacking other players' turns, that kind of thing, right? Telling people what to do when they're trying to play.
The big optimizer who always pulls out the strangest rules which are in edition number 275 or something.
Right. There's all the little bitty details there. Anyone have any other ones? We're doing good.
Hey, you got all the answers right so far.
So far.
Spotlight player always focuses all these.
That's on the list. That's a good one though. Because you're right. It's
Good name.
It is because
It's pretty close to Munchkin, right?
Yeah.
Similar.
Yeah,
it's all about you.
It's a good one, right? Because it does kind of happen. It's a shared experience, and some people can kind of take the spotlight from everybody else.
The AP prone guy.
Yeah, analysis paralysis. That was definitely one that was mentioned there. It's and you know what? Look, we've all. Okay. Has anyone else been prone to AP? I know I've done it a couple of times. Right? Yeah, like it happens. It happens.
I'm not raising my hand.
Okay. Any other ones?
People that bend the car.
Thank you. Exactly. Thank you. I have it on here.
People should take care of their games with pirates.
Rough on components, sloppy with food. Yes. I have learned to relax a little bit about it, but it's certainly, yeah, it's one.
Rules stretching / cheating.
Ooh, cheating was on the list, and that's the idea. Kind of like taking advantage a little bit of the rules. Did I see that?
They kind of did, but
We're always trying to nitpick every small detail, trying to get everything you can out of every situation.
You know, someone wrote something on the list that I thought was kind of interesting. Let's see if I can find it here. It was aggressive play style, even if it's within the rules. And look, I mean, it depends on your group, I think, a little bit. Some people like an aggressive play style, but sometimes, depending on the dynamic, that can be, like, I'm someone who's always blocking everybody else. Ticket to Ride, playing very aggressively. That's part of the fun of Ticket to Ride for some people. For some people, that is a real big turnoff. And sometimes you have to know who you're playing at the table with and decide what's more important here. That I'm winning or that I'm creating an enjoyable experience for people.
I think this more goes with role-playing games, but the min-maxer, like you're really the guy that really goes in there and tries to get.
And maybe loses the spirit of the game a little
Exactly.
bit.
Yeah,
Well,
it's just all
no,
robotic.
it's still in board games, I promise. This especially comes into play the person who they're already winning by 80 points, and the game's over, and they're like, wait.
That's a good point.
I'm like, I will flip this table.
You've won.
You've won, be satisfied.
That's good. That's good. Another one on here was hygiene. Believe it or not, that was like the number one thing I saw in this list was that. It's a simple thing, but it can certainly affect people's enjoyment. I think you guys hit pretty much everything. Oh, cut and run when losing. Some people think they're losing, like, I don't want to play anymore. I'm out of here. This is dumb, right?
I don't run into that one as often.
I don't, but I hear stories about that, right? And so it's like, I don't want to play anymore. Even if they don't cut and run, they've cut and run mentally. Do you know what I mean? You can just kind of tell, right? They've kind of checked out.
I cut and run when I'm winning. I'm like, we gotta go. Let's go.
I think that's, being inebriated. Well, that's an interesting one. I have a gentleman well, I guess this is being recorded, isn't it? In my game group, who sometimes might step out and come back, and suddenly his playstyle changes dramatically. That game we were playing, that really deep Euro, suddenly like grinds to a halt over on that side of the table. It's another time and a place sometimes. I think that's everything.
You can do the smoke breaks.
And smoke break. Oh, yeah, that's right, smoke breaks.
That happened.
Every 10 minutes. Yeah, I have somebody else in my group, same guy. Different kinds of smokes every time. But yeah, and you know, for everyone else who's waiting, it's like, we can handle one or two, but now it's kind of becoming a thing where the game's just being halted all the time. You know. Not playing to win was the only other one I think I had on here. Which is kind of a funny one. I don't know exactly how to define that, but like someone who's going, I'm going to try some wacky strategy or whatever, or... See, I don't mind that so
That one's
much.
kind of iffy, right?
It's iffy,
It all
yeah.
depends, especially in a multiplayer game, if someone is doing some weird thing and it helps someone else win, which comes
Right.
down to one that's not mentioned on there, which is kingmaking. I think we can all agree that that's of the devil.
Sometimes, especially, like, you might see that crop up when you maybe have couples at the table, right? Where they kind of are helping
You know,
each other.
I've heard that couples get along in games.
You haven't experienced
It
that.
seems like this magic story. I ask my wife all the time.
Can we get along this time? Support me here?
The one thing I wanted to mention, you mentioned this in here, and when talking about this, we feel very self-righteous about these often. And there are a few of these which are blatantly wrong. Like cheating is a non-tolerable thing. But most of these, from my perspective, they're awful. But maybe I need to give too. Like analysis paralysis. Sure, that person needs to hurry up. Maybe I'm making a move too fast.
Right.
Maybe this person's taking the game so seriously, I can't stand that. But maybe I should play a little bit more seriously, or vice versa.
Yep.
So a lot of these times we got to be careful sometimes, because it's easy to demonize the other person and sometimes realize I'm part of the problem, or at least give a little bit of ground. We're trying to keep the game group intact. I'm not doing what I can to destroy these people, to kick them out of the game group. I mean, that may come to that at some point, but I want people to do well. So I need to give them some middle ground. Someone who moves really slowly isn't going to suddenly move fast in a day,
Right.
or ever. But they might change slowly, and I can maybe meet them halfway.
And you have to decide what's the most important too, I think, right? Because you might be right, like that person's taking too long or whatever, but if you value the relationship with them and potentially what they bring to the table outside of some of their deficiencies, then you've got to like find a way to work with that, I think. Have you had any situations, like any stories of, and we want to get some of your stories too, maybe some of your questions, right? Do you have any situations that come up?
There's so many. In the years of playing games. No, one of the ones, when I worked I worked in Korea for a while, and I was a teacher there, and I worked with the military bases. And one of the interesting things about the military bases is that people come play games. And so I always have to be very clear and say when we're playing games, well, we played in a church too. And in a church, there was always this rule across the board, in church there's no rank. That's pretty important when there's a general in the front row and a private in row 2. Now it's usually not that far apart, but in the Army, a rank or 2 makes a big difference. So gaming is the same way. You sit there and a lieutenant's there and there's a private, and the private can't really smack talk the lieutenant too much.
Right.
And so we had to like take that out of the game. But I had a lieutenant come one time who was just he had such a bad attitude. Just straight across the board. Constantly he would say the dice were cursed, and I thought, you're kidding. And but then I wasn't sure if he was kidding.
Yeah.
And he just complained all the time. All the time was complaining. And he's the only person, one of the only 3 times in my adult life, not counting kids, where I stood up and yelled at someone in the middle of a game. Not the best way to handle it there, but I was so upset that I was like, you are bringing this whole game down. You are ruining this for everybody. And then I went and talked to him later on about that. And that actually worked in that situation. I don't recommend it.
Right.
He came to me and apologized because the military does tend to train you to listen to, and I wasn't in the military, so I didn't care about rank or anything, But the other people did, right? And they couldn't say anything at this point. And he was causing such a big problem. He was consistently just bringing the game down. If someone attacked him, it was that, why are you always hitting me? And I really just had a hard time dealing with it. And
Did he curb his attitude after that?
He did. It really was.
Okay.
He was much more sedate. Now again, that's an outlier. I've yelled at other people and nothing has changed. And I don't think yelling at someone is the best way to handle it. In that situation, it worked. But there's a better way, I think, to deal with it, and I'll talk about that after Rodney's first story.
Oh yeah, sure. I had a gentleman come to our
Like, it is interesting. Like 99.9% of these stories are going to be men.
It is.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah. He came to our game group, and he was new, and of course we invited him in. And we have a pretty small game group. I live in a small town, and invited him to play some games, and almost immediately he was. We have an AP-prone person in our game group, and he was on that person constantly. And this, again, someone none of our game group had played with before, right? But he was immediately at the table going, really? How long are you going to take here? Let's keep things moving, and badgering that player. And beyond that, criticizing people when they would make a gameplay decision. They would do something and go, oh my gosh, that's so stupid. How could you do that? Like, very, very belligerent. Like, almost to the point of, like, shock. You yelled at the guy, right? I wouldn't have been able, I was so shocked processing what I was seeing. I couldn't believe the behavior, right? And little things like getting his phone out and starting to play videos during the game and then trying to show people that during moves. It really got kind of crazy. I knew this was going to be a problem. I found out afterwards, actually, that the guy, a couple of our members wrote me privately and said, like, I don't think I can come back if we're going to have that player there. And found out he maybe bullied some of the people there previously and stuff like that in school when they were younger and that sort of thing. So there's an ongoing issue here.
This is a really...
It was kind of difficult, and I was somebody who's probably one of the group leaders there, so I felt like something needed to be said or done. And so we did talk to him about it and said, like, your play style is so aggressive and combative, it's a turnoff to the people who are playing with you, and we don't want this to be a problem. We want you to be able to come back and play, but that's got to be curbed. Maybe I should have yelled, because it didn't work. It didn't quite work. And I honestly think that in this particular case, I don't get the sense of it. He was really trying to do it maliciously. I think there was a little more going on. There was maybe a little bit of a social development thing that was maybe at play as well. But unfortunately, it was so disruptive to the game group. I had to ask him to not return. And that potentially in the future, we can try something maybe outside of our regular game group and try to play in the smaller groups and see if that works. Didn't quite pan out there either, but it was one of those situations, unfortunately, we had to draw the line and go, this kind of behavior just can't continue.
So how many times have you done that?
Thankfully, that's the only time I've had to do that. Most of the time, if we've had an issue, we've been able to talk about it, and usually people aren't super receptive immediately. There's usually a certain defensiveness that you want to stick up for yourself and say, hey, it's the other person who's the problem or whatever, but generally, it's worked out. Because people don't want to be not in the game group. They want to come and play games and hang out and have fun. There's a sort of social contract we're trying to all engage in there, right? But for this person, this was too much to ask at that time.
How did you tell them? Was it email or verbal?
Initially, it was verbal. We had a talk. And then when I felt it was time to say, look, we have to draw a line, in that I wrote. But I wrote it not to avoid the face-to-face contact. It was more, again, because we're in a small community. I felt like this story could get taken in a bunch of different directions. I want it in writing what I said, so it's very clear. I'm being nice, I'm being tactful. And so we wrote to him for I think it's best that we go our separate ways. I don't always recommend the write. I think it is good to do it face-to-face. The write's obviously easier because it's a little less personal, but I think it's good people can see you're not wishing them any ill will in the process, right?
Now, you mentioned that you were the leader of a game group, and we tend to, our personalities are that.
A little bit.
We'll take charge.
Yeah.
One of the problems that can crop up is that you have a place that you're not in charge of, and that's the problem. This happens a lot at local game stores. No, I didn't say friendly local game stores because I really feel like a friendly local game store will handle these problems.
That's a good point, because in this case, it was someone's home we were playing in. It wasn't at a game store or something. So yeah, you're right. That's
And in a game store, you can't say you can't come back to the store because you don't have that authority. But you can say you can't play games with the group, and you can make it so that they will leave regardless.
Yeah.
You know, most people won't come where they're not wanted and it's been expressed. But I think it's good if you have a group to kind of put that down. It's not that someone needs to be a dictator in charge, but you want that person to say, so-and-so's being a problem, can you talk to them?
Right.
Because one of the biggest problems with problem players in the group is no one ever says anything, except to each other. And then what happens is people stop leaving. And that's where I get into the thing. I want to help people as much as possible. I want people to come to the gaming group. But if one person comes and they chase away 7 or 8 people, that's a huge problem for me. If they chase away one person, that's a problem for me. And that's where it has to be dealt with. And I find that a lot of times, no one deals with it. And everyone just kind of, I'll stop coming because that person's annoying. Well, let's talk about it. Let's work through that if we can, because that is, again, a problem that local game stores have, even in like their shop itself. This customer buys a lot of Magic, so I'm going to let them keep coming.
Right.
Well, that's fine, but they're chasing away your other customers. You need to deal with that, and unfortunately a lot of game stores don't, and a lot of game groups don't, and so you need to talk to whoever is in charge and say, this is a problem, how do we handle it? And I found that that's one good way. If you have, not everyone's confrontational. I confront people, I hate it, right? But I'll do it. Some people won't do it or want at all, so find someone who's willing to do it, because otherwise it's a cancer to you.
Yeah, I think if you have an ongoing game group, it's not a bad idea to have, it doesn't have to be a formal code of conduct, but just even if you have a group that meets regularly and you think you might have that problem, why not have a little outline of things that, here's kind of the way our group works, this is what we're looking for, this is what we're looking for out of this experience, as a way of just letting new people who come in, both feel more confident about kind of inclusive environment you're trying to create, but also know kind of where the boundaries are a little bit.
I am so excited. We're in a very good position. We have a new game store opening up in our area.
Oh yeah?
Where there's going to be a game night, and I'm in charge this time rather than the local game store, and we're going to do that.
Oh yeah? Okay.
And one of the interesting things is sometimes there are things that are going to vary from group to group. Cursing, for example. Maybe you don't care if 4 out of every 5 words are curse words. That's fine. I'm not saying that's, but that needs to be set because some people will not like that. You need to kind of figure out where the group is. Do you allow inebriated people at the table or not? That's going to change from group to group and also change how, can kids come or not? That's a big thing too. Can we let 10-year-olds come and play with us? Especially when they're dropped off by their parents and the parents leave.
Right.
But you need to have these rules in place, or what are you gonna, you have to handle it. And so
it's easier to do it proactively than retroactively, right?
Right. So you better believe I'm gonna have a list of guidelines, and then not rules, because you gotta be really careful, because rules come with such a negative thing. Here's the list of rules, and then there's always that guy. Rule number 6. The rules should just basically be do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's the general gist of it. But there should be other things too. If food and drink are not allowed at the game table, that should be made clear way earlier. Or basically, hey, if you mess someone's game up, you're going to be expected to pay for it.
Yeah, because people don't want to be embarrassed either, right? Like if they know the rules, there's less chance they're going to screw up and then realize after the fact, right? So what are some strategies to help bring everyone on board with the game, even if everyone's going to learn differently? Some people are very fast, Some people they need the visuals, some people need a lot of examples, some people just want, like, can we just get started and we'll learn on the way? Can't stand those people. Because they're the first ones to go, what, you never told me that? No. Right? I shouldn't say it. Like, that works as long as everyone's on the same page. As long as everyone's on the same page to learn like that, that's fine. But usually you have a mix of people, like you're saying. Okay, look, I'll get this one out of the way. Yes, if there's a video you can direct everyone to watch before a game group, why not? And hey, let's watch it play, and hey, you know, like that's an option. There's lots of options. But it's kind of nice. If you can have some player aids or sheets, Board Game Geek has wonderful player aids oftentimes for each game that will just summarize the rules on one page or so. Print them up and give them to everyone. So that way, they've heard the rules, they're not quite sure, they maybe are embarrassed about asking, they can just go look and find the thing they're looking for on a page right in front of them. That's a nice way. Do you have any thoughts about how you...
Yeah, I'm fortunate to be in a larger game group, so there's usually 20 people there. So I can play with whoever I want to some degree, although we'll talk about this later about timing issues and how you can make sure you play with the people you want to play with. But we have people who come in who are different in how fast they pick up a game. I got a guy in my game group, you've seen him on my videos, Jason. I can explain the rules and he could be sleeping and he would know how to play the game. And that's fine. But then I ran into one person who really struggled to the point where some of the folks in the game group said, we are not going to play with this person because they asked the same question 40 times over the course of the game. And I said, well, let's see what we can do. So I would play with that person, but there's a couple things I would do. First of all, if I was playing a heavier game, I would say, listen, this is too heavy for you. This is not a game that you would be interested in. You gotta say it in a way that doesn't make them think, you're dumb. This game is too hard for you. No, but just say, hey, this is really complicated. Did you think that game the other day was super complicated? This makes it look like, Candyland. So you make it that way so that they know what they're getting into. And you also don't want to get to the point, you need to do this, this, and this. But then I would say, okay, I'm going to play this easier game now. I will include that person.
Right.
And bring them in. And, oh, they want to play the same game more than once? Okay, fine. Because I like to play new games all the time, right? So, all right, so I would do that and bring in other people of like minds. And then, Jason, you should go play over there in that group because this will frustrate you.
Right. And
that really helped. This person now picks up games a lot faster. I play more complex games with this person now, but I had to stop being a little arrogant as to maybe too strong a word, but just kind of say, it's not that big of a deal. Sure, they're going to make mistakes. Yes, you need to draw after your turn up to 5 cards. The same thing over and over again, but that's how some people learn. And so... I'm
glad that you mentioned about kind of warning people off of the game, because I'll do that too. My game group makes fun of me because they heard me one time, a couple came over, looking at the game we were about to set up and wondering if they wanted to play or not, and I said, well, this is really like a really dry, long Euro. And I was saying that because I knew this was not the kind of game they were going to enjoy, and the other people was like, now every time Concordia comes out, oh, it's that dry Euro that everyone but it was more like trying to, I didn't want to say, this is over your head, it was more like, this is not going to be exciting to you, I didn't think. And just trying to save them from that experience. And I think kind of giving people an out so they don't feel like they have to sit down to play a game just because it's happening. We have a problem because we have a small problem. We have a small group. So it's not easy to split up necessarily and find 3 or 4 different options. You know what I mean? And I think you probably have a slightly bigger group.
Slightly, right. And another thing I do too is, especially with Euro games, if you have someone like that, do not play with the full player count. Don't do it.
Keep the game short. So
almost every Euro game says up to 5 players. They're almost always way longer with 5. And I'll tell people that. I'll be like, look, we're playing 4 max. And that's, I'm sorry, maybe it's faster with 5, but we're going to play with 4 or, the smaller player counts, and it just goes better that way. That person was making more actions, more turns faster. In the 5-player game, they can get lost in the shuffle, and then they drag down the whole game on their turn, or whatever the full player count is. Because most Euro game publishers lie anyway about the times.
Yeah.
This game
it's not good marketing
minutes.
to say that it's going to take you 4 hours to play. I don't get hung up on this too long, but one last thing I just want to say about what you were saying is I think it's better to err on the side of being patient. Even though you might have 3 people at the table who are just like, come on, I will try to play towards the slower person because I want them to, look, the rest of us, who are better at games, we can take it on the chin a little bit for an extra 10 minutes to explain to this person a couple more examples. Is kind of how I look at it. I'd rather make them feel like they're able to be participating than make them feel like they're the ones dragging everyone else down.
I agree, but only for someone who's having a problem with the rules.
Yeah, yeah.
When you say slower, if it's something
Oh, yes.
slower for
Yeah, and other
other
rules.
reasons, that's
I'll take the
different.
time to explain something, and if they're, I'm not quite getting this, let's explain, let's make sure you're on board, yeah.
And also, when you do these things, it's always best to help them at the expense of yourself. You know, when you're like, I don't know what to do. Well, you could attack this territory here. That's your territory, not the guy across the table who's already annoyed. You laugh.
It happens.
That gets people really mad then.
Yeah.
Kind of have an issue where you have a group of about 10 people, and I would prefer to split into 2 or 3 games instead of playing party games all the time. And I own a few party games, but I don't want to play them every single time, every single night that we get together. Is there a good way to kind of facilitate, not forcing people to split, but kind of encouraging that without being kind of the boss?
I think you're gonna have an answer on this. Can I ask one quick question though? Is it your personal game group at your house or something, or is it?
I host at my house,
Okay.
and there's
Okay.
could be anywhere from 6 to 10 people. I mean, I know I could not invite everyone for a particular night, but then that kind of creates.
Right. Well, real quick, we're repeating for the camera purposes is that
Right.
the question is, what do you do when you have like 6 to 10 people and they don't really want to split up into multiple groups, and then you're stuck playing the same party games over and over and over and over again?
Right.
Something I've definitely run into.
Do you have any thoughts on this one?
I apologize. In this case, I just say, guys, I'm playing this 4-player game. The other 6 of you figure out what to do.
Yeah, I knew that was going to be the answer. I've heard this one before. But I think it is kind of, like if you've done the party game thing multiple weeks in a row, you get your turn too.
Yeah.
Like I'm all about trying to make everyone happy, but at a certain point, everyone has to compromise a little bit for the enjoyment of everybody. And if that's not happening, there might be something wrong with the dynamic of the group, right? Or just let them know, maybe this is the week you skip. Like, because we're not going to play a party game, we're going to play this. But we'll be back next week for more party games.
Right, that's true. Or there's some people who might say, hey, we really want to play Puerto Rico. I'm like, oh, great. We'll settle a night up. And we're just playing Puerto Rico, and you know, whoever said be invited. And if you're very specific, people who aren't invited should not be that upset about it. Especially as long as no one posts pictures on Facebook. Like,
On the opposite end of the spectrum, someone in the group always brings a specific game that they really want to play, but that game is probably going to take the entire night. Yeah, it's a newer game, but it's just not really fit for play. It wouldn't play everyone, but B, just it's really not fit for that kind of night.
I know your co-host Eric Summer, his solution to this problem is everyone in the game group gets a week. Like, it's my week, I'm picking the game, and it's going to be this. And next week, right?
yeah, he calls it the pick group, of the way that he does it, and I hate this method, but it works for his group and it might work for others. I'm too alpha, I think, for this.
Right.
But everyone has a pick. And so what they do is they have a list. And so tonight, let's say we show up and it's like, hey, Rodney, it's your first pick, Tom's second pick. So Rodney says, I'm picking this game. So he picks this game. And we're like, all right,
It's probably Kevin.
who wants to join this game? Oh, no, then I'm sorry, then I pick a game.
Yeah.
And then everyone can join those 2 games. Now, when I pick a game, I could say I'm going to pass because I really want to play in the game that he's playing. That's fine. But then the third and the next person gets to pick a game. Then there's 2 games, and people can join either of those games. If you don't like it, well, you already knew the rules going in, but you're going to get your time at some point. So if you have that long game, you can do it, and if no one wants to play the game with you, which I think is something he says, like if no one wants to play the game, then it's just, then you're going to have to hunt down other people.
Right, you might find a different group. That person might just have to.
I have a guy who shows up in my gaming group, where he showed up every time with Monopoly, Scrabble, and Triopoly, and a whole bunch of other games. And he's like, hey, and I was like, wow, hey, look at this game I have. I think you'll love it. Let's play this one. Okay, and that worked for a few weeks, right?
Yeah.
And then he's like, when are we going to play this game? I was like, well, look around. Maybe someone will play with you. And shockingly, he got people to play with him. And I was glad.
I have to say though, if this person in your group is bringing it every week and they want to do it every week and they're persistent for like half a year, let's cave in. Come on.
What's the game? What's the game?
It's Dark Souls.
Oh, never mind.
There you go.
No, but I know what you mean, right? But I mean, maybe some people would be interested and maybe people would like it. and maybe after playing it for an hour, you would cure him.
I definitely want to play it.
Yeah.
It's just, it's hard.
So you're saying it's not the right time, not the right place necessarily for
I would
that
just,
game.
like I said, I would really, someone came to me and said, I want to play Twilight Imperium. And, no, we're not doing that tonight at a game group. But maybe we can schedule a day to do that. And that's the way I would do it. Well, we're not dead today, but I'm not just talking about Twilight, but any game that's a bigger game, I might say, hey, we're going to play through Descent, some campaigns of that. That's when I pick specific people and say, why don't you come, we're going to play this specific game. I already have it set up when they get there, things like that. And that really is useful. The people who weren't invited were like, we didn't want to come anyway.
Right.
And I found that works well, especially if I'm like, I don't want to play it, but I find that 4 other people who want to, I'm like, hey, Sam wants to play Twilight Imperium with you guys, go ahead.
Oh, there we go.
I just, an answer, and I find most people are pretty accommodating, actually. Like, you'll find that, this table here, we're just gonna let me play in this, and we want 5 people and the rest. Like, I ended up playing, Mr. Darcy and stuff like that. Which turned out to be a fun game, like me and the girls were over playing. and marrying Mr. Darcy, that was it.
Right.
And, it was kind of fun, and it kind of had that vibe, and it was in someone's house, where you got all these 2 different games going on.
A number of times I've been surprised by a game I thought I wasn't going to enjoy, but I said, okay, we'll give in to this person wants to play this thing, and then end up having a great time. So sometimes you get surprised. Anyone else have it?
Flipping it around for a second here. You show up at a sort of convention setting, okay, where people are playing games and stuff like that.
So here.
Yeah. So you show up here, okay. But anyway, you come into the room, people are playing games and stuff like that, and you think, okay, I am kind of interested. I don't know the games that they're playing. How do I engage? Like, what do I do with that? How do I get in?
So the question here, again for the camera, is just you come to a convention, you maybe don't have a group that you've come with, and you walk into the gaming area and you see all these people playing games and you want to get involved in some way. How do you sort of insert yourself or find someone to play with, right? It is a challenging thing. And now some conventions will set it up that you can get little flags or things. You put on the table, hey, I'm looking for other players, or I'm looking for a teacher. Sometimes they'll have things like that. Now there isn't something like that. It does get tricky. I don't know there's an easy thing. It's going to come down a lot to, I think, your personality. If you're very introverted, that's a difficult thing to do, to go up to someone and say, it looks like you have room for one more. Would you be interested? Like, I find most people are generally excited to share their enjoyment of the hobby with other people, especially if those other people maybe aren't in it yet. Like, I'm always looking to suck somebody else into this same thing, right?
Right, and if they don't want you to join their game, then you didn't want to play in it anyway.
With them, yeah.
If those signs aren't there, and they should be at every convention, they're here, there's player 1 at times.
Yeah.
But if they're not, hopefully the convention has a good enough staff. Like, here's a really great example. There's a lot of staff here.
Lots.
Just go to one of them and say, I'm looking to play a game. You got anything? And here I know they'll be like, oh, well, we'll find you something. We'll set this up. We'll get you. I'll play a game with you myself. This is a really good situation. But at any convention, I might find someone running it and saying, hey, I'm looking for a game. How do I get into one? Let them be the bulldog, because they will gladly do it.
Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Is that helpful? Yeah.
I was going to say, building on that too.
He's going to play with you.
There are a lot of demos throughout the day, especially for this convention, where they'll say in the schedule, we're going to teach this game at this time. So then you can go, and they're already set up and ready to go. So if there are games you're interested in, people that also want to play that game will go on their own or with the group, and then you can go and play that way as well.
That's a super good tip. I regret that we didn't say it. That was
That's true. The publisher will always teach you the game.
That's a good thing to look at.
Yeah, lots of demos going on during the day to get into. Yeah.
Me?
Yes. You.
Okay. The problem was sitting in the front.
I know. Sorry, I just looked.
It's all right.
Yeah.
So I guess the obvious problem that I'm thinking of is like the alpha problem where people are butting heads, right, and trying to be in control. What do you do? And this is a more common problem for me now. I'm getting a little older than I was, obviously, and
I feel you. Yeah.
I have I have fewer to zero alphas, and so decisions don't get made. We have game groups where people stare at each other, and nobody can figure out what they want to do because nobody wants to assert themselves.
Are you talking about, so the question is about alpha gaming, are you talking about in the game or like just picking a game to play?
Picking a game to play, making decisions about rules.
We don't take advantage of that group so easy. I would play this. So the do if you don't have enough alphas in there to actually make decisions, to get a game picked or played or whatever, right?
Yeah, and it happens in role-playing games too, where like
Sure.
not board games, but where people are expected to the characters are supposed to collaborate to make a decision, right? And 0 decisions get made, and I'm game master,
I've never run
and
into
people are
that.
scared. This is the thing. I didn't either. 5 years ago, it never happened. Now it happens all the time.
For the group picking games, again, I can't believe I'm saying this twice, Eric's pick thing would probably work.
Yeah.
Hopefully he never watches this video. But that would work in that situation. Hey, it's your turn to pick a game. Pick one.
Does your group know are they aware that this is a problem?
Yeah, I think so.
Sort
Well,
of?
I think they're aware that it's like a humble brag. It's like we have this problem.
Yeah.
It's actually
We're also nice.
It's just a sign that everybody's a great
I promise you that's a better problem than the other way around. I promise.
I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah, I mean, I was say too. You could go random. You could go. Here's a bunch of games that we like. Put them in a hat. Someone draw it out. I think that's one option.
Someone who made a game, I forget the name of the company, where you took all your games in your collection.
There's a web app thing. I think you go in. We should put the link in the description if we find it. But you can go in. You can say how many players. You can even say kind of the genre or type of game you want to do, and it will look at your collection from BGG, I think, and pop out. Here's a suggestion for a game. I mean,
Rodney, Board Game Bible I was talking to you about.
Yes.
If you have your BGG list on there, there's a button in the corner that says random,
yeah.
and you can just randomize.
Okay, Board Game Bible app is another. You can look at your collection and randomly pick a game.
Yeah, and you can filter your collection by players and everything, and then press random.
Okay.
Cool. Okay, that's.
I know we're getting down to time here. We're getting about.
Yeah, there was
5
also
minutes,
there was another one. It was actually a published game that I reviewed that helped us narrow it down. Where you like put all the games that you're interested in on the table, and you put a card on each one, and then there was some.
Oh, really?
Everyone would vote, which game you want to play, and you can cancel the.
I like that.
Yeah, I just picked the game.
They could just call you. Okay, we're sitting at the table. Tom, let's play.
This already happens. You can email me. Which of these 3 games should I play? I'm like, I don't know.
I think we can probably get time for one more, but we're like 5 minutes left, I think. So.
This is directly at you.
Sorry, okay?
Did this happen today? I can deal with it. I'll talk about it.
So, as someone who's looking forward to the day this video comes, what do you do if you want to learn Rebellion?
That's a different question.
What do we do if we want to learn how to play Star Wars Rebellion?
Read the rule book. That's what I did. I didn't wait for the video.
It might come someday. I mean, look, there's lots of things you can do with that game. Like if you take the lid off, it could be a hat. The components, they could be like caltrops you can throw.
They are.
Yeah. Good question. Someday in the future, hopefully, if I keep doing this thing, we'll get to that one.
Is this a better question?
I like that question.
Not necessarily dysfunction, but you guys are in the leaders in the industry.
No.
Do you guys research on how to better come up with ways to teach games? There's videos and just the rule book, but are you guys discovering new methods?
I don't know that I'm discovering new methods necessarily. I think I've sort of, at least for what I do for the videos, I've kind of found my pattern that I think works and seems to work for my audience, so I don't tend to change it too much. I kind of have a format I follow. But I think where I get to where I am in terms of how I teach is I watched other people teach games, and I saw people at the table get frustrated or get lost. And I looked at those moments and said, okay, I've got to make sure that doesn't happen. Those are those moments that I've got to avoid in some way and find strategies to avoid. So probably it's happened, but it's been gradual over time. I'm not even sure what those steps were anymore.
Have you done a video like on how to teach a game?
Actually, I did a panel last year about that, actually, some tips and tricks about that. So I guess there is kind of some tips and tricks around that, but I often don't think of it anymore, except when I'm asked to do a panel on it. I think about
I keep saying we're going to make a video on it, and then I never do.
I probably should do that.
I think that's one of the most biggest stumbling blocks to people getting involved in the community is learning a new game. They get frustrated early.
It's a big barrier to the entry, for sure, the rule book. Yeah.
Well, do you have any final thoughts here?
Not really. I mean, I think the main thing, it's good topics, people brought up challenges that we all have to face. I think it is a good idea to be aware of how we are potentially contributing to that and how we can help avoid it in our own game groups. I think what you said is about treating people the way you want to be treated is kind of the big guiding principle. If you try to do that sincerely, it can solve a lot of problems. It means not always putting yourself first in the situation.
Yeah, I don't want to get into this, oh, woe is me thing, but I didn't like as a kid being a nerd, being excluded from things, or looked down on because being a nerd. I got over it, not a big deal, but I need to think about that in the game group. This person, they're really annoying, they're really slow. Have they taken a bath, in this past week or whatever? We can make fun of them and laugh and joke about them, and it happens a lot. And people talk smack about that person behind their back, and sometimes we're very unkind and cruel, even maybe not so blatantly, but we just treat people very poorly. And yeah, people are problems in groups, and we'll talk about how to deal with that. But other than like cheaters or people who are bullying others, like you mentioned, for the most part, these people are there because they like games, and we are sometimes the only positive thing in their lives. Their life might suck otherwise. They really might. And so I need to think about that, because my game group is my job now. I go there, I'm like, we must learn 6 new games in the next 10 minutes, we're learning this, but it's also a place for me to get more people into, just for me to be as nice as I can to them, to make relationships beyond just, are you going to be fun to play this game with? Nope, all right, next.
Yeah.
If that's all I'm doing, then I might as well just play games in my house and not ever go out with other people.
And that kindness can be infectious. And that person can potentially see a good example and change, too, so.
That's unfortunately all we have time for.
Right. Please, Tom and Rodney, Tom Vasel.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at coolstuffinc.com.